Yeah, my name is Jasity Caldata, Transity Vietnam, and since 1965 I become a voter, and I always place my X next to the cup, and what they are doing today, I can't take it. So I have no more vote to give to PPP anymore. I'm not going to vote anymore no more. If they have to lose by...
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
Okay, here we go. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone had a pretty good weekend. Um, Tonight we've decided to give the regular host, Mr. Mark Benchop, the honorable one. He's got a day off today. So tonight I will be your host. I know you all know me by now. My name is Wayne Caesar, and welcome everyone to Straight Up Tonight. My guest, as you can already see her in studio, Miss Annette Ferguson, MP. Annette, a pleasant good evening to you.
A pleasant evening to you, Wayne. I'm indeed honored to share this platform with you in the absence of the key host, Mr. Mark Anthony Benchcop on 107.1 FM. May I also take this opportunity as I have the floor to say a big good night to your wonderful viewers and listeners here on social media. And as we prepare for the celebration of Emancipation, August 1st, allow me to extend that greetings to you, your family, though you're not here, but I know you will be celebrating wherever you are. And also to our wonderful listeners and viewers here in TV land. A happy, happy 2023 Emancipation to us all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Annette. And I might as well just take the opportunity also to wish all the freedom fighters out there. You guys know yourself. You guys are here day in and day out, night in and night out. Happy emancipation to all of you. Tomorrow we shall celebrate, you know. So Annette, let's get into things here. Let's see. What's my first question I want to pose to you tonight? So tomorrow is emancipation. And of course, across Guyana, my expectation is that all Guyanese will be participating in this exercise, of recognizing, what our ancestors would have done. And, would be a part of the exercise based on the importance also of emancipation, because emancipation would have benefited all Guyanese across the board. Do you guys have any functions planned for tomorrow? That's my first question to you.
All right. What I can say is that from the level of the opposition parliamentary group, I am not aware of any planned activities from our end. But what I can safely say is that um, in communities, in regions, there will be a host of activities across the country. I know for a fact that Linden will be having their stuff tomorrow. Mocha had something yesterday. I think they have something tonight. And the usual um, activity there in Hope Town in region number 5. So they have their activity tonight. I know that across some communities, you will be having libation ceremony, to usher in tomorrow's activity. I know that Buxton on the east coast of Demerara, they too are hosting something. Dr. David Hines, and other organizers in that community. And I think the leader of the opposition and well known Guyanese will appear on stage this evening. Um, where else do I know? I'm not familiar with any other activities across the land, but except to say that in organizations, many persons turned out with their African attire today. at several government offices and also private organizations. So I just want to say again a big, big happy emancipation to all Guyanese. And it will be good for me to make this pitch, Wayne, that I think Emancipation 2023, you'll be having a lot of displays, a lot of activities because, mind you, 2022, 2021, 2020, Guyanese, more so African Guyanese, could not have celebrated in the usual and the traditional way because we were actually in COVID and also coming out from COVID. So I believe that with the country open up now fully. Persons are not really wearing their mask, so the national park will be filled to capacity tomorrow. And I know many persons have already prepared for tomorrow's activity at the national park. I would also want to say that I know for a fact Ipadaji, they had some activities out in the busy streets there in Main Street where persons, small African entrepreneurs who would normally make their craft, their dashiki, like what I'm wearing here this evening, and all the other
Yes,
African,
beautiful, beautiful.
all the African elements, they had those things out there on Main Street. So persons were able to go and purchase whatever they wanted to purchase. I'm also aware that private individuals in their own capacity, they too had stuff or their items on display. And it started about 2 weeks ago. So I believe, as I said before, Emancipation 2023, you will see families, you will see different ones, even, the other races, they too will turn out in their African prints to show this oneness of unity, one people, one nation, one destiny. So it's a coming together of Guyanese. And we all know that, emancipation, yes, our foreparents, they fought for us. It wasn't an easy fight, coming out from slavery in 1838. And we know that the plans and the steps that they would have paved for us so that it's only for us to continue, the villages that they bought. Victoria, as it is being claimed, is the first village um, bought by slaves. We also have, I know for a fact that at number 53, there on the current team, you will have the traditional style celebration of emancipation. So across the region, I expect a hype of activities. They've already started, and I know tomorrow will be bigger and better.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, MP. So basically, you're saying it's going to be a collective effort tomorrow, and you expect all on Sundry to be a part of the emancipation exercise tomorrow. So that's good to hear. And I know the AP and you would have been able to do something grand for emancipation, but I know that you guys are under some budget constraints also. The PPP would have cut your budget. So that is totally understandable. And it's good that the Guyanese people are gonna come out and they're gonna celebrate emancipation because it's a very, very, very important holiday, and it's a very important time. It's a time for us to feel empowered. It's a time for us to reflect on the body of work that our
Yes,
ancestors would have put together. And
indeed.
you're correct. In 1838, that was the abolishment
Hmm.
of our ancestors being enslaved. which enable
Yes.
them to work the plantation actually for a wage. And it's with those wages, they would have
Right.
purchased all these villages along the coastline from the Victoria to the Golden Grove to the Pleasance, and we keep going even to the Mockers and all these different places that they would have done eventually. But
Yes.
it's good to see that, us as Guyanese, although we are still somewhat facing a form of oppression, is still able to sustain and keep our villages above water. That is very, very good. And every Guyanese should be proud of themselves for this. But we still have a lot of hard work ahead. But
Agree.
I do
Agree.
look forward to taking some time tomorrow and, reflecting on emancipation. Though my children are American children, I'm going to still take some time to draw at the table and sit down and edify them about the struggle. Because, Annette, I myself and many of us on the broadcast here would have come from that same struggle.
Yes,
So
indeed. And
good.
apart from the traditional wares and we call it all the other activities, what you will see most on display would be the variety in the African dishes. A lot of metemchi I know will be on sale tomorrow. You will have the kanki. I recall as a young girl, my grandmother was big on making this thing kanki, but I was never fond of it because of, I got my peculiarities in eating. But I remember kanki, and it still is alive today. You will also see, I guess you might have black pudding on display. You would have sauce. You would have the cook up rice. You would have the pepper pot. These things you will see on display, the variety in African dishes tomorrow. So I know families and individuals and a number of persons are also back home, and they too will be a part of tomorrow's celebration because, mind you, as I said earlier, we were in a COVID period. So now that, the place is open up, tomorrow will be a grand one for many to celebrate.
Grand indeed, grand indeed. And I look forward, to touching base with many of my comrades in Guyana, and wishing them a happy emancipation come tomorrow. But we're going to quickly switch gears. While tomorrow is emancipation, I think tomorrow also represents 3 years since this installed government would have been in power across Guyana. So my question to you is that, you guys have been going to parliament, and I'm going to pose the question to you. What have this government accomplished thus far in the 3 years, in your opinion?
Well, I will be as frank as I can. For me, I do not believe that this government has accomplished anything. And the reason, other than making their friends, families, and cronies um, a little more richer than others. Tomorrow being August 1st, they actually came to government on August 2nd. So it would be the
Okay.
day after tomorrow would be 3 years since Guyanese have to face with the oppressive and repressive and suppressive and depressive People's Progressive Party Civic. You would recall when they came to government, the first thing that they did was actually to get rid of over 2,000 African predominantly African Guyanese, highly qualified Guyanese. What else they did? They flooded lands that were occupied by a mixture of Guyanese, not only African. What else they continue to do? Deny segments of Guyanese contracts. They're not following the rule of law. We would have also witnessed them flouting the Constitution, um, you know, taking advantage of their political opponents. And you would have seen what played out with recently with my colleague, the Honorable David Patterson. What else have we seen? The lives of Guyanese have not improved since August 2nd, 2020. We're having Guyanese are living currently in an oil rich economy here in Guyana. But, but they are not, many of us are not feeling what the benefits from the oil. What else we recognize? This government, we would recall, Wayne, that this government promised Guyanese, more so public servants, 50% increase in wages and salaries. They are yet to deliver on that. When they came in August 2020, they passed a budget in September of 2020. Public servants receive zinc, no increase in salaries. 20 in 2021. I'm trying to remember what figure they gave. I can't even recall if they gave an increase in 2021. But in 2022, 7% increase in salary under an oil rich economy here in Guyana. When in 2023, we're yet to see what the percentage in increase in salaries would be for public servants. What else we have witnessed, Wayne? We were in a COVID environment. You they started to distribute 25,000 cash grant as relief. I can tell you that there are many communities across this country where persons did not receive or benefit from that 25,000 cash grant. Many are still holders of pink slips. We would have seen the unequal distribution of the resources amongst the people here in Guyana. So I can go on and on this evening, Wayne, but the bottom line is 3 years of the People's Progressive Party Civic, I don't believe that they can really rejoice. I don't believe that they can really rejoice. I don't even believe that Guyanese can celebrate with them because of what we would have experienced, Wayne. You would recall over a month ago, over a month ago, we had a situation involving Nigel Dharamlal. Nigel Dharam, where allegations were brought against him, um, Wayne. And a day like today, Nigel Dharamlal is yet to face the courts, despite what the young lady might have come out and said. Dharamlal himself never came out to deny those allegations. But rather
Well,
than the government acting, we would have seen how this matter played out. So I will pause here for now.
yes,
Wait.
and I do have a question on that matter that I'm going to pose to you a bit later. But with
Mhm.
all that you would have said just now about this installed government, let's not forget also that they went out there without even consulting the opposition, and they would have ordered that Sputnik V vaccine
Mhm.
that they were giving to the Guyanese people that was not WHO approved.
Proved.
You know,
Exactly.
it just shows you. And then what did we have? Expired HIV testing kits that were
Mhm.
also ordered by this same government. We tend to see a consistency with this government, when it comes to illegalities across the board. And all of
Yes.
this proves just how reckless the government is when it comes to their citizens. They just don't care. We will give our citizens anything. We will inject them with any vaccine. So many of those people who received that Sputnik V vaccine had to go back to get another vaccine that was credible, a
Mhm.
vaccine that was approved. And then look at it, Annette. They attempted to lock people out of banks and out of all these different institutions until they would have received a vaccine.
Yes.
It
Yes.
just shows where this government would go when it comes to oppressing, their
Yes.
own
Yeah.
people. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would have think, Annette, over this 3 year period of time, that the Guyanese people would have gotten a good sample of what the PPPC as a government has to offer. I don't think they need any more. I think their decision as to who they would vote for would already be stored up here. Listen,
Exactly.
I'm gonna pause this also. I'm gonna say this also just in advance because I'm usually out front of the PPPC and they've already started something like this. You have to study these people, and I was telling Mark this. I just have to study them because it's like a chess game. You have to study the game so you know what the next move is going to be. All right. So I was saying, come next election, Annette, they are going to take the position that they're going to go there and offer Guyanese anywhere between 150 to $200,000 to vote PPPC. Because right now, I'm telling you, you saw what happened during the local government elections. I would
Well,
have called that, Annette. I would have called that because that's the only way that this installed government can win an election in Guyana because they would have rigged the 2020 elections.
you know, if you will allow me, Wayne, you,
Sure.
you know, I tend to agree, but yet disagree with you. Um, Come 2025, indeed, I believe some amount of cash might be, you know, advanced to people in order to do vote buying. But I hope that the People's Progressive Party Civic learn from what they would have experienced during the lead up to the local government elections, where billions of monies, taxpayers' monies, were actually used to do vote buying, predominantly in the APNU strongholds. And you would have seen that they were indeed rejected by those people. I recall in my constituency, leading up to the local government elections, you know, different ones, young ones would say to you, well, the promissory 2000, we get 250,000 cash grant, and the promissory another 250,000. But, I sat and I had to reason with these young people because it seems as though some of our people were being carried away by this, the splurging and how the distribution of the monies by the People's Progressive Party Civic. And I can tell you, the people said to me, you think I will go and give the People's Progressive Party Civic my vote? Just over a week ago, in my constituency, I engaged like two young men. And they said, MP Ferguson, you think I gonna take I gonna take we own money, the Isle money, and vote for the People's Progressive Party Civic? No, I know where my birthright is. That is why in most of the the APNU strongholds here in Georgetown. They were beaten and beaten badly. So come 2025, whether it's 500,000, $1 million, they would be, you know, we call it again, giving out to the people. Believe you me, or coercing the people to accept. Believe you me, the people will not accept it because the people recognize who the People's Progressive Party Civic is. The people have gotten a bitter taste since the return of the People's Progressive Party Civic in August 2020. Just before coming home this afternoon, many different ones on the streets. I had a meeting with some real estate agents because we have a bill coming up on Thursday in the National Assembly, the real estate agent and broker bill. And I did some consultation with a few persons today, and I can tell you I heard it in their voices. The pains. They said I can't wait for 2025. These people don't care about us. It's all about the foreigners coming in and getting the first preference. And we Guyanese seems not to be getting anything. So Guyanese are tired. Guyanese are fed up. The high cost of living. The high cost of living. This government refused to address the high cost of living in this country. A motion was tabled through me in the National Assemblies in 2022, last year, February, for us to discuss the high cost of living so that relief can be, agreed upon and our people get some sort of relief. They refused. They refused to have that motion debated. But yet in budget 2023, you have $5 billion is in this year's budget to address Wayne the high cost of living in this country. You go to the market now, the plantain prices ain't coming down at all. It's very, very stable. Tomato plantain is now $260 a pound. Tomatoes $600 a pound. Cabbage, things growing right here is close to $500 a pound. So this government cares absolutely nothing. So I believe that the people, will move a referendum towards them come 2025 at the next general and regional elections.
All right, Miss Ferguson. Just like you, I do partially agree with you. And then there's another side of me that's going to say this to you. I feel on this program here, straight up 107.1 FM, that we have been very impactful in educating and edifying the Guyanese people that, they are some of the richest people per capita. That's number one. Number two, whatever the PPP would be offering to them would be temporary in nature, right? They need something more robust, something that is more consistent across the board, that they're able to maintain their families on a year to year basis, which would be more so jobs. I think the Guyanese people are really in need of jobs. And I
Mhm.
would have keep talking about the economy and all the talk about, the growth in the economy and the mechanisms that they're using to measure growth across the economy, because I think their method is incorrect and doesn't give an accurate description of what's going on and across Guyana, because it doesn't depict the fact that there are many Guyanese people who are living below the poverty line and many Guyanese people who cannot afford to take care of their families properly on a
Mhm.
day-to-day basis in an oil producing nation. So,
Mhm.
Annette, as we move towards the 2025 elections, and you being a part of the opposition, you know, what would you put in place, to try to render or solve these issues? Let's just talk about poverty for right now. I want you to hit on poverty, and I also want you to hit on retirement, pension, because I'm very concerned when it comes to pension, because I do have a lot of respect for our pensioners, because they would have put in the work. Is because of their work that Guyana is in the shape that it is in today. I know the PPP is ripping our country apart, but if it wasn't for the work of those pensioners, we would have absolutely nothing. So I would like you to address that for me. You know,
Yeah, thank you, Wayne. Look, poverty, Guyana's poverty rate at the last report, I think, is by either IMF or IDB. They would have, they found that our poverty rate is 44%, under 50%. And indeed, Guyanese continue to live in a country where poverty is the order of the day in many communities. And it seems to me that this regime, who promised Guyanese a good life, who promised Guyanese that, well, look, they're going to create 50,000 jobs for young people, who promised Guyanese that they will do X and do Y, who promised the public servants a 50% increase. They're yet to deliver on these promises. So I believe, as a coalition, and I guess through the leader of the opposition, he has identified a slew of measures that a coalition government will implement to ensure the lives of our people are improved. In order for you to address poverty, first of all, one, you have to ensure that your nation is well educated. Our people must be educated. You will recall, Wim, that the People's Progressive Party Civic promised Guyanese free education at the level of the University of Guyana. They are yet to deliver on that particular promise.
how many
The-
promises are we up to now? How many promises are we
well,
up to?
well,
Because it's quite a few I've already
it's
heard.
yes, well, it's probably about four I've
Yes,
identified
yes.
thus far,
Let's keep
right?
going.
Good. The other thing for the coalition to address poverty, I pointed out one, we must have an educated nation. So our education system must be improved. Our people must be able to have access to quality and equal opportunities when it comes to education. Secondly, we must be able to have jobs created so that our people, our young people, when they leave school having a university degree or a diploma, they would be able to access jobs based on their skill set. The other thing, you must be able to pay proper wages and salary. In this oil economy, you won't believe the minimum wage. The minimum wage stands at 81,000 Guyana dollars. This is what some public servants are getting. So if a public servant has to pay a $40,000 rent, then you got other things to take care of. I was doing the calculations last night in preparation for my budget, for my presentation National Assembly on Thursday. I realized in order for a public servant to live a decent life, their salary got to be clocking between 150 to $200,000 per month, Wayne, per month. So for me, those are the key areas any caring government would have to zoom in order to raise the poverty level um, in this country, in this oil economy, or to reduce the poverty rate in this country. You asked me on the issue of pension. Look, sometimes it is good for us to give a background to certain issues. I recall as a young parliamentarian in 2012, when we went into parliament, you had pensioners were receiving a pension of less than $15,000 a month. I can't even remember if it was $10,000 a month. It was the coalition in as in opposition, the APNU and AFC, that really advocated the then government, the Ramatar's government, for the pension to be improved for our pensioners, because yes, they would have made significant contributions towards the development of Guyana. And we know many of them depend on this little money when the month comes. When we came into government in 2015, we were able to raise the pension. We moved it from where the PPP had it, and we, gradually, up to when we left office in 2020, the pension stood at $20,500. $20,500. I think it is now about 33,000, because since they came in, they have been, applying the increases. But what they promised the pensioners during their elections campaign in 2020 is that they will ensure that they get, I think it's $40,000 per month. Look, Wayne, I believe in this oil rich economy called Guyana. You know, the government needs to pay our pensioners a reasonable pension. I believe now the old age pension should go to at least $60,000 per month for now, and gradually increase. The government for this year so far, they would have raked in over, I'm trying to get the figure, I'm trying to remember, over 1 point something billion US from the oil revenue. In November, no, that was for November 2022. I think for this year thus far, it is 470 something $1 million from the oil revenue. I'm talking US. So, what exactly is this government doing with our oil resources?
So basically, Annette, you're saying this year that we're on target to extract more than we would have done last year.
Exactly, because
Okay,
because so far Exxon Mobil, they have stated that they're now producing in excess of 300 barrel of oil per day. 300,000, I think it's 350,000 barrels of oil per day. Now we have to ask ourselves, I mean, yes, the monies are coming in, but the monies are not trickling down to improve the lives of our people. People
good.
need better education. People need better salary. People need better health care in this country. Where are our monies going?
Right. That's a good question right there. And my answer to that is that the government of the day, the installed government of the day, they're not being transparent in no way or form. But my pitch as far as eradicating poverty across Guyana, first thing that I would do personally, I would have a stimulus package in place where every household in Guyana on the initial year would receive $500,000. And then the two subsequent years to follow will receive 2 payments of $250,000 each. Also, I agree with the opposition leader on building homes. I think in order to eradicate poverty, most Guyanese should have a home to live in, a home to call their own. So, Aubrey Norton would have talked about, building out these homes and having people rent them. But essentially, when you're paying rent, it's not a rent that you're paying. It's basically a mortgage. And once you would have paid for the home, it belongs to you. I think that that's a very, very good strategy and would be very good for the people, because I think it's quite shameful, Miss Ferguson. And I know that you was once at the Ministry of Housing, right? Am I correct?
Absolutely
Right.
correct.
Yes. Okay. You were once at the Ministry of Housing. And listen, you only had 5 years there, and probably 1.5 to 2 years was in a take care mode, right? You agree? It's how long you guys were in that take care mode?
Um, about from 2018 December, 2018 December. So roughly a year and change.
Right. Let's say a
Roughly a
year and
year.
a half. So it's right. So basically the coalition, you know, was in full power for 3.5 years. That's not nearly enough to eradicate the damages that would have been done in the 23 years before that. So that's understandable. But there are Guyanese who are sitting there, would have applied for housing for 20 years, for 17 years, for 15 years, for 14 years. And, it hurts, to see these people that would have applied for a piece of land and cannot get a piece of land in their own country that they were born and bred in. But you have external forces who have the wherewithal, meaning the financials, to come and approach the government and is able to get acres of land. Not a lot, acres of land in Guyana.
And
This is not fair. This is not fair to the people, Annette. And, to the extent that we have that change, which I do expect, that change in government come 2025. I would be expecting the coalition, and I say this, Annette, I'm so glad I have you on, the program tonight. I think that you guys need to have a vision already in place. You guys need to have your plans already in place, your strategies in place, because I would have said this before. Once a new government is in place in Guyana, the time for you guys to settle and start executing, it's not going to be as long as the PPP would have gotten or past governments would have gotten, because the Guyanese people are tired. They are watching the country develop from an infrastructural basis,
yes.
and they are not developing as a people. The most important capital is human capital. And to watch the backward government that we have now not invest in their human capital, but going ahead with all these infrastructure projects without even proper drainage and irrigation around Georgetown, they're putting up tall buildings. It's like putting up a building, like the Bible say, on sand, and not on solid ground. So, I hope that, as a coalition, we're taking a look at what's going on here, and we are going to do differently, once we get in there. And then the other thing that I would have seen, we have to remember the people on the ground that supports the party. There are a few people that would have came to me, right, and would have indicated to me that, I think we lost Annette. That's okay. That they supported the party, and after the party would have gotten into power, that they tried to get in touch with some of the representatives and could not get in touch with the representatives. We need to correct those type of things as we move forward, as a coalition you know, moving towards governance in Guyana. Okay, it's now 4 minutes to 10. I hope that you guys enjoy the conversation with Miss Ferguson. I know we've lost her. I hope that she can get back in. I don't know if the operator could let her back on, but if not, we're gonna just continue here. I'm gonna just take a look at a few comments and maybe I could respond to some of those. Uh, okay, it's not coming up, so I'm gonna just go solo here. So tomorrow we're preparing for emancipation, and I do hope that my brothers and sisters are all excited and are ready to celebrate and just have a good day of reflection of us as a people. And when I say us as a people, I mean all six ethnic groups across Guyana, because emancipation would have affect all six ethnic groups one way or another. So we should all take some time to reflect on what our ancestors would have achieved, what they would have placed in our hands. And also at the same time, we should examine ourselves, take some time and reflect on what we are doing for the generations to come behind us. We cannot forget, it doesn't stop with us. There are going to be generations behind us, and we need to leave for them a good Guyana, a sovereign Guyana, a Guyana that is not in poverty, a Guyana where our brothers and sisters are standing shoulder to shoulder as one people, one nation, and we all have one destiny. And that destiny is to have a great Guyana, a Guyana that is good enough for all of us. Miss Ferguson, welcome back.
Yeah, sorry about that, my
Yes.
brother.
Yes, I do have a few more things that I want to touch on. I think we can go until, if you don't mind, if you have the time, we can go until around 10:30.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Yes, yes. One of the other things I want to touch on, Miss Ferguson, is our border situation as an oil producing nation. I feel what we have going on our borders is very, very lawless. For a country that is bringing in such revenue, we are not doing anything at our borders. People are walking in and out and are not being documented. We need to put in place, what should be called the Guyana Border Patrol, and you hire 500 to 700 people. Listen, the PPP promised 50,000 jobs. When they got into power on it, they would have removed around 3,000 people, two to
Yes.
3,000 people. So they're in the hole, meaning owing the people 3,000, I mean, 53,000 jobs,
50,000. Mm-hmm.
right? In essence. And what are they coming up with? These little 10-day work and 20-day work and all. This could never satisfy Guyanese.
No.
Because when you go to your landlord, you cannot say, I would have only worked 10 days. So this is all the rent I have. No, the landlord wants his or her rent in full.
You see, Wayne, regarding the border situation, I get you're a Guyanese, so you know our the dynamics as it relates to how our country is so designed. Our borders are indeed porous, but with the availability or the access to the amount of monies coming country by way of the oil resources, right? You're not seeing this government put more emphasis on addressing the border issues here in Guyana. That's why you have influx of persons, whether from Venezuela, um, Brazil, or even Suriname, because will leave their country of birth to come through these areas, and then they end up all here in Guyana. So when you really look at the operation or the modus operandi of this People's Progressive Party Civic, it is not far from what we inherited when we came into government in May of 2015. I can tell you they're talking about um, um, some plan or strategy to fight crime, to address this, to address that. If we have called on the minister, Mr. Robeson Ben, to table in the National Assembly all these plans that you claim to have, right, to address whether the border issue or the crime issue in this, or the migrants issue in this country. My brother, he is yet, he is yet to honor our request, because, Mr. Wayne, and to your wonderful listeners, this government do not operate unstructured on structures. They do not operate with systems. They believe to run this country to perhaps make known to the Guyanese people that they're doing something is the wild wild west approach. It is the wild, wild west approach. So that is why we will continue, this nation will continue to face the challenges it is faced with when it comes to our border uh, issues. It is not only the movement of persons. You got a lot of illegal substance coming through too, and I mean these substances are moved by human beings. But
Correct.
ammunition, illegal guns coming through our borders. Even
What about gold?
you
What
would
about gold?
gold too. You would also have these contraband, things that should attract the importation of VAT, you or the excise taxes. People would look for the easier way out to beat the system. So this government don't care, because if you're to weigh on a scale of 1 to 10, believe you me, 8 out of 10 would be their people who are involved, whether in human trafficking, using the borders, whether in having illicit substance being transported. You look at it, ammunitions, illegal ammunitions coming into the country. You look and see who are the main players, or the key players involved in these illegal activities. So I will say again, the government has absolutely no plan to address whether it's border uh, issues, whether it's to uh, reduce the crime rate here in this country, and all the other areas, whether housing, whether water, whether public, so they have no plan. So they're just operating by the way, because they feel comfortable that way.
Well, well, Miss Ferguson, thank you for that. But one of the plans that I think that the PPP have that they would love to execute, and we will not allow them to execute this plan, is to eliminate the Georgetown Public Hospital. They are not funding the hospital the way it needs to be funded. They are trying to privatize our healthcare system. Hence the reason for them having the sheriff hospital and all these things put in place. But I must say this, Miss Ferguson, we have to fight to make sure that the Georgetown Hospital is kept alive and all public hospitals across Guyana is kept alive
Yeah.
because our people just cannot afford to go to the sheriff hospitals and all these different hospitals. And I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in the future. You're going to walk into a sheriff hospital. Let's say Georgetown Hospital is eliminated. You're going to walk into a sheriff hospital or maybe a Balwat Singh or maybe a Woodlands hospital. And they're going to start asking you how much money you have. Let's say you walk in there with a patient, a family member that is sick or ill. They're going to start asking you how much money do you have? And if you do not have enough money, they're going to tell you plain, we cannot see this patient. And that is sad. And that is what I do not want for my brothers and sisters. So all these little things I'm studying and putting in perspective because the Georgetown Public Hospital is in a prime location. You can do a lot of things on that landmass there. But it has been the Georgetown Public Hospital for many years. And that is what it will continue to be. This government, you know, put their policies in place without even consulting the opposition as if they represent the entire country. Well, I can tell you this, Miss Ferguson, the opposition represent a larger faction of the people because it
Exactly.
was not the opposition that would have rigged the 2020 local and government elections. It would have been the PPPC.
Yeah.
And we have to maintain a frontal position. And Ms. Ferguson, with this, it leads me into the next topic that I would like to quickly touch on. What are we doing about a new voters list? Because when I look at dates here, Ms. Ferguson, okay, tomorrow is going to be August 1st, 2023. 2024, 2025. Okay?
Yes.
August. It's going to be August. The elections is going to be August. You know, Barry Jagger is a wicked person. He's going to ask for those months that we had where they were trying to determine who win the election with all the outside interference and everything else. I don't know. By the way, I don't know if you watch at Maya Motley speech that she had. I think it's at the UN, but she do have a split tongue. You know, she talks out of both sides of her mouth. Because she would have been one of the people who would have assisted in installing the PPP, this oppressive government. So, you know, I would like to know what you think should be the approach in going about, you know, getting a cleanse list. Well, I would prefer house to house registration and a brand new list or biometrics. If we're going to do biometrics, Miss Ferguson, that exercise need to have started yesterday. But over to you.
Well, to answer your question, Wayne, you know, and all Guyana, and I guess those on this platform are aware of the opposition's position. We are calling on GCOM to ensure that the voters list for the next general and regional elections is a cleansed one. Why are we saying this, Mr. Caesar? In leading up to the 2020 general and regional elections. The coalition government, we commenced house to house registration so that we can, get all the deceased persons' names off the list. Those who are perceived to be out of the jurisdiction at the time of house to house registration, their names also would have been off the list. But what the People's Progressive Party did is that the process commenced and they encouraged their supporters not to participate in the house to house registration. You recall that? They
Yes.
then moved to the courts to say to the court that, well, look, it is illegal for persons who have migrated and whose names are on the list to be removed without them not being here in Guyana. All right, the court ruled that we can't take people's name off the list. You understand me? And that so that process would have caused the halting of the house to house registration in 2019. So we end up using the list that was actually used for the 2015 elections. And we know that the list, our population at the last census, suggests to us that we are 748,000 plus persons in this country, less than 750,000. But yet, we went to those elections in 2020 with a heavily bloated list. If you got a population of 748, how come your voters list had 660,000 persons on that list? So we went to the elections and we recognized through the recount what would have transpired. And after we discover dead people voted, migrants who were not in the jurisdiction at the time of casting ballots, they were not here. They too voted. You had missing oaths of identity, statutory documents all were missing from the box.
You
So
also had you also had 47 ballot boxes also, right?
exactly. So, what after we recognize from the observation reports, 61, look, it's there, 61 dead persons voted, 4,864 absent voters. These were persons who were not in the jurisdiction on March 2nd, 2020. You had 150 stuffed ballot boxes. You had 47 ballot boxes without documents. 1,278 missing oaths of identity. You know what's identity? Is that if I turn up as a voter to cast my ballot and I don't have my ID card, then I
Mhm.
have to take an oath before a ballot is issued to me. But we discovered that 1,278 missing oaths of identity, but yet people voted. People voted. So after recognizing what transpired on March 2nd, 2020, through the national recount, the opposition, we started a campaign that we need a clean voters list. We need biometric because biometric will indeed eliminate many of the infractions that took place on March 2nd, 2020. We also called for, the GCOM chair to be replaced, and amongst some other things we called for. And we continue on to this day to call for the voters list to be clean. Let us have house to house registration. The last house to house registration was done between 2007 2008. It is time for the voters
Yes.
list to be cleansed, right? We're also calling for biometrics. But this call is not only a call that the opposition is making or made in 2020, 2021, 2022, and still making in 2023. When the People's Progressive Party Civic lost the elections in 2015, Mr. Barra Jagdeo, in an invited interview on NCN, I think it was, or somewhere he did that interview, he too made the similar calls. The PPP wanted a clean voters list. They wanted biometrics. They wanted then GCOM chairman Dr. Steve Surridge Bally to go. They wanted the whole the head or the administration there of GCOM to be properly cleansed or whatsoever the case may be. So our call today is no different from what he stated in October of 2015. What has changed? What has changed?
Well,
So,
Miss Ferguson, not to cut you, but I have to ask this question. We know the position with the voters list. Okay? We know this even before the 2020 election.
mhm,
We went into the 2020 election. We came out of the 2020 election. 2021, 2022, now 2023. When are we going to get electoral reform across Guyana? Because it's needed. Okay, the country is in disarray. You had people from the opposition and people from the government at each other throats. Oh, you
mhm,
rigged. Oh no, you rigged. That these kind of things is not right. And we go to parliament and we have budgets every year, right?
mhm,
And
mhm,
you allocate a whole lot of money to education and all these things. Well, the education money, I would still like to see where that money is going. Because, outside of a few schools, North Rumville Secondary being repaired, and there's a school up in the Linden area being constructed, and maybe a few other small projects here and there. We're talking about $94.4 billion. We can't see anything there.
exactly.
Okay?
Mhm.
Electoral reform should be one of the number one priorities since we had such issues with the
We-
2020 election. So
Well,
why are we not executing in this area? And what it is that we have to do to get this done, because this must be done. We have to remember this. The PPPC were able to rig the 2020 elections and they were not even in power.
mhm,
Now these people are in power. You can just picture and figure out what they're going to try to do now.
mhm.
I myself, as someone, who is mathematically inclined, I still can't even try to figure out, well, what they're going to do, because I know that they're going to be dealing with a larger sample than the local government election list. Hence, it creates so much more opportunities for these people to rig the election. They had such a large influx of Venezuelans and others coming into our country. Even India and some other countries are coming into Guyana. How are we going to keep track of all of this, Annette? There is so much that is going on at one time here. We need to have a registration process. We need to get everyone re-registered. There are a lot of people who gone home 4, 5, 6 years ago and they're coming out to the cemetery and coming and vote and all these kind of things. You know, these things seems to be only in Guyana.
Yes, you see, while I hear you and I agree with the points advanced by you, is that indeed Guyana needs to see a house to house registration so that we can, have many of the issues that we were confronted with for the March 2020 election doesn't repeat at any next election. And that's why I've been saying that the coalition we have been calling on GCOM to act. But you would recall that the Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana is clear when it comes to the functioning of GCOM. GCOM is an independent body funded by taxpayers. But what we have three commissioners from the opposition benches, and we have three commissioners from the government side, and um, Madam Chair, who has the balance when it comes to votes. But what we recognized is that the GCOM has now become a political arm of the People's Progressive Party Civic. Reason being, and I guess you might have been seeing the writings of Brother Vincent Alexander, practically every other week on matters concerning uh, GCOM and what Madam Chairman has been involved in. Many of the times, Brother Caesar, when there's a deadlock between the six commissioners and that one vote, that swing vote, is to be made by by the chair, she all times favor the People's Progressive Party Civic. So clearly, the question must be put whether Claudette Singh is serious about having transparent elections, right, under her watch. She has to be accountable. And if the opposition cry and the general populace, because Guyanese are not stupid, they too have been joining practically every week, adding their voices to the call that we need a clean voters list. We need biometric. Once we're given these things, believe you me, all the issues, all the gray areas, all the suspicions about who rigged, who didn't rig, who twiddled with figures, who did this and who did that, it would help to eliminate some of these suspicions. But as you asked earlier, it seems as though the PPPC got something up their sleeves. I also want to remind you, Brother Caesar, and your listeners, that the EU report after the EU observer mission was here to observe the electoral process. They compiled a report, and many of the things Jagdio asked for in 2015 and we asking now for, they are contained in that report. The report from the national recount by the CARICOM observers, they too, the same thing, the same issues highlighted in the EU's report, they too highlighted those issues, those recommendations were made. But to date, you just made mention that we should have electoral reforms. Yes, I believe we should have electoral reforms. Those two reports speak to that. But the big question we must ask ourselves, do we have the political will? Is there the political will? I don't believe the People's Progressive Party Civic has the political will to see a free, fair, and transparent elections, whether the local level or at the national level. But
Well,
I believe with the calls from the opposition, we have the political will to see free, fair, and transparent elections. Because if we didn't, we would not have gone to house registration in 2019, which the PPPC used all the machinations, all the shenanigans they played to ensure that that process was halted.
okay, Miss Ferguson, you spoke of fair and transparent election. You also spoke of the fact that GCOM is supposed to, quote unquote, supposed to be an independent body. I agree with you across the board on all three of those points. Now, when we talk of free and fair elections from GCOM, which is an independent body, it has to start, okay, with Miss Claudette Singh Force being independent, which I am at this point certain that she is not, because she have never voted with the APNU. She have always voted with the PPPC. So she is not independent. Number two, she always comes out with these statements that, oh, my life was threatened and all these sorts of things. Well, here, if your life was threatened, you need to quit this job, because these decisions that you are making are putting Guyanese in poverty.
Exactly.
Term after term, you are punishing thousands with one stroke of a pen, right?
Mhm.
She has to
Mhm.
understand that. She needs to get that through her head, that she's affecting the Guyanese people with these decisions that she would have been making.
Yes.
That being said, Annette, this government is lawless. We know this, okay? The fight, when you take the fight to this government, it cannot just be in parliament. We have to take this fight to the street in protest. I'm not talking about being violent or anything, but we are going to go out in front of GCOM. We are going to also go out in front of the courts, because it was the courts, right, that you recall would have stopped the house to house registration. Okay? So the same courts need to make a decision that GCOM should have house to house registration, or we should be using biometrics. Those same courts that would have denied the people of Guyana before needs to make that decision. Listen, Annette, we want to call ourselves a democratic country. We want to feel as if we're living under a democracy in Guyana. Okay? But when I look at the posture of this current regime, we are not even close to a democracy. They do not consult the opposition on anything.
Mhm.
They were very upset when Anthony Blinken chose to meet with the Honorable CDE Aubrey Compton Norton. So basically, they want a one-party state where they dictate all the terms and everybody just have to follow and get in line. I was always of the opinion that the PPPC, since taking power, in their best interest was to bring supporters that do not support them to their knees.
Mhm.
African villages to their knees, meaning suppress and oppress those villages that when Irfan Ali walk into those villages, the people are going to fall to their knees and beg him. But you guys are going to wait a very, very long time for that, because the Guyanese people will not break. They will not bow to you. And we are going to always be one people, one nation, one destiny.
Destiny.
Now, over to you, Miss Ferguson, for your closing remarks tonight. We are looking at the time. It's now 10:31 p.m.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much, Wayne, for having me this evening to share with your wonderful viewers and listeners. I want to say in my closing remarks that Guyana is indeed in a bad state under the People's Progressive Party Civic. But many Guyanese are afraid to speak out because of victimization and discrimination. I mean, we as opposition members who are to represent our people, and that we too are feeling the squeeze. In the National Assembly, when motions are tabled, when questions are asked, and I talking about question, allow me a second or two to share
Sure.
this with your listeners and viewers. I ask because the People's Progressive Party Civic is in a habitually has been saying to Guyanese that the coalition government imposed over 200 new taxes and fines on the backs of Guyanese since May 2015 to August 2020. My brother, in order to stop them in their tracks, I put a question in the National Assembly asking the Dr. Ashley Singh, who perhaps has no portfolio at this point in time, because he's signing monies now. If you look at Guyana currency, it's Jagdio signing now as vice president on Guyana currency, right? I asked the question, please list these 200 new taxes, right, that we imposed. You know what response was given to me? I'm going to paraphrase it here in a sentence format by Ashni Singh, that, the list is in the public's domain. It was a rude response to my question. But I want persons to understand there is no list. There is no new taxes, so there can be no list of 200 taxes. Because we know that if this was so, the PPP would have already published it. They cannot publish it because it never occurred. If you tell me, yes, the coalition might have, amended archaic laws to bring certain taxes that were already on the books, on our law books, up to speed, that is what we would have done. But we don't impose no new taxes. So if you had a donkey, a dray cart, and since 1960 or 1940 was a $5 or 10 cents, all we did in 2015 is to amend the donkey cart legislation to bring it to a little $100 or a 15. I just call in a figure here. But no new taxes, right? Secondly, there is also the question of the 7,000 sugar workers. They like to say that we have severed. Well, I know at Thursday's sitting, because I asked the question too of the Minister of Agriculture to produce for all the factories y'all claim we close, right? List the 7,000 sugar workers that we severed, because the numbers continue to be inflated. So I'm waiting on that response, and I trust that I wouldn't receive a question like what Ashni Singh Dr. Ashley Singh, provided in the National Assembly. I know the sad thing is that this speaker, this gatekeeper who sits in the National Assembly as the speaker of the PPPC, he too has no shame. Because how can you as a speaker sit in that National Assembly and have these sort of questions, these sort of responses coming to you? It clearly shows that you are biased and you have no regards for the over 214,000 people who voted for the coalition government in the March 2020 elections. I now close by saying to all of us, we cannot give up. We see who the People's Progressive Party Civic is. And it is we will have the opportunity, whether we want to say things now or we want to remain silent, we will have the opportunity at the next elections to vote them out. The People's Progressive Party Civic is bad. They are bad to govern this country. People are suffering. People can't get jobs. Look at what is happening at Georgetown Public Hospital. When you go there, you got to wait. If you go there tonight, you ain't getting attended till probably tomorrow morning. That is what is happening. And with all this oil money, 1.27 billion US, they raked in November of 2022. For 2023 thus far, I think it's 460 something million US dollars. The question each Guyanese must ask themselves whether our lives have improved from August 2nd, 2020 to now. The People's Progressive Party Civic has made hardships for Guyanese. It's not easy, Wayne. You have to be here to get a full understanding of the suffering that Guyanese are going through. Many might be, with them for now because people claiming they got to eat. They got to eat. People got bills to pay, children to send to school. So I want to say we have to hold together, and we will have an opportunity at the next elections to take this country back and govern fairly. You, the people of Guyana, had a taste of the coalition governance. We not had oil money. The same monies where they had in 23 years from the traditional resources is the same monies we had access to. But you know what? We were able to improve the lives of our people. Over 77% we give to public servants when we left. We did massive infrastructure development. Many of our roads and bridges still standing. And I can go on and on because there's so much achievements under the APNU, AFC government. Now that they're back in government and having more access to monies because of the oil, we are 10 or perhaps 1,000 steps backward because nothing has changed. Things have gotten worse. So I want to say to Guyanese, let's hold together. Let's bind together. Let's rub shoulders together because as we prepare to celebrate Emancipation Day tomorrow, we must come together just like our foreparents would have done. They came together, pooled their resources, bought villages, left inheritances for us so that we can leave those very inheritances for our generation and generations to come. So emancipation tomorrow means a lot. to us as African Guyanese. And with those few words, I want to say to all, happy, happy emancipation. Wayne, once again, thank you for having me here this evening, and I look forward for more conversations like these. May God continue to bless us, and may God continue to bless our beautiful nation, Guyana. One people, one nation, one destiny. I don't know about a one Guyana.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Miss Ferguson. And it's always a pleasure dialoguing with you. I know it was, a last minute call up that I give to you, but you're always there. Whenever I call you, always take my calls. I want to really thank you for coming on this evening and edifying and speaking directly to the people, being a part of the opposition. So thank you so very much. And point well taken. The PPPC is no good for Guyana. And I say this, PPPC, your time is up. And come 2025, the Guyanese people are going to say to you, PPPC, enough is
Enough.
enough. We have had enough of you guys. It is time. We need change across our country. We need Guyanese to live out of poverty and in happiness once and for all. The struggle has been long. It's been tedious. Many would have suffered. Many would have died in this process. And Miss Ferguson, you really pointed out, the time during the period of the coalition. Yes, you could have sent your children to school and they would have come back home. Adults would have left for work and they would return home. But under the murderous PPPC in those 23 years, many would have left home and not returned. I recall as a student, I was studying at that time, and I would put on the news in Guyana and I would see women holding their stomach and screaming for their children. What a sad time. What a sad time. PPPC, you should be ashamed of yourself. You're a disgrace to your people. Ms. Ferguson, thank you very, very much for, coming on and edifying the people. I look forward to seeing you back at some point very soon. Do enjoy your emancipation and have a very, very good night.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you. All right, then. I just want to thank all the freedom fighters tonight for hanging in there. We had a pretty long program, an hour and 45 minutes. Okay, this was my first program, and I do look forward to spending, time with you solo from time to time in the future, to give Mark a little breather here and there, But I want to thank you guys very much for tuning in, and I hope that everyone do have a pleasant Emancipation Day tomorrow. And listen, let's not look forward to August 2nd. Let's just celebrate August 2nd as another day of remembrance of Africans and what they would have done, and another day of remembrance of emancipation and what our foreparents would have went through. Let's not remember August 2nd as the day the PPPC government was installed. It has not been a good taste in our mouths. They have done absolutely nothing for our people, and we don't want to remember them in any way or form. To all the freedom fighters out there, a pleasant good night to you all. I'm going to take some time and reflect on emancipation tomorrow with my family, and you do the same. Good night, everyone.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.